Story time of the time that I encountered a black-eyed child. If this is the type of content that you're into, feel free to follow along. I post a scary story every single day. And for reference, I did share the story a while back when I had like 2 followers. I figured I would go ahead and reshare it now. This happened when I lived in Georgia. It was late at night. I was up watching a movie when I heard somebody knocking on my door. For whatever reason, my gut instinct told me not to open it. 1, it's creepy for anyone to be coming to my door so late at night. But 2, I just had this gut-wrenching feeling that something was off. I ended up getting up from the couch and I got near the door trying to figure out who was out there. And before I could even open my mouth, the person standing behind the door knew I was standing there and said, "Hi ma'am, I'm just here selling some magazine subscriptions. Can you please let me in?" I was a bit startled at first because how would he even know that I was standing there? I was definitely quiet. So I kind of peeked through the peephole and I saw that it was like a boy about to be maybe 12, 13 years old. He was wearing a hoodie. He was just kind of standing there. I decided to ignore him. He continued to knock on my door and start saying, "Please ma'am, if you would just let me borrow a corner of your table so we can talk about these magazine subscriptions." And I'm just like, no. And he's just knocking until he gives up. He turns around and he goes right across where my neighbor lives. I hear when he knocks on her door and she opens it. The minute she opens the door, I hear the boy say whatever it was he was gonna say to her, and all I hear is her scream, say "honey," like calling to like her husband, and then she just slams the door shut. Right after that, it was complete silent. I didn't hear anything else. The next morning at like 7 a.m., my neighbor came knocking on my door. I looked out and I saw that it was her, so I opened it and she was freaked out. And she begins to ask me if a boy had been at my door the night before. So I explained to her and I said, yes, somebody knocked on my door and I saw when he knocked on your door. She then goes to tell me that when she opened the door and he started to talk to her, she saw that his eyes were completely blacked out. Like even the white parts were completely blacked out, and she got this gut-wrenching feeling that her first instinct was to yell for her husband, and she slammed the door shut. That was one of the first times that I had ever even heard about the black-eyed kids. And once I did more research, I found out what happens if you open the door. So black-eyed kids bring death. They bring chaos. They bring sickness. They bring loss of money, loss of income, loss of job. They just bring the worst of the worst. Thankfully, she did not allow him into the house, but she did answer the door. So unfortunately, it cost her marriage. Like her and her husband ended up breaking up. It was a horrible divorce. She lost everything. Like everything just horrible. So word of advice, if you ever hear a knock at the door, don't answer it.
Stop scrolling because this is Earth's Scariest Places Part 62.
This spooky looking place above me is the teacher's camp in Baguio City, Philippines. It is undoubtedly one of the most haunted places in the country, and if you stick around, I'll tell you why. But first, a quick history lesson. The teacher's camp was originally built in the early 1900s to act as a vacation home for American teachers stationed in the Philippines. Teachers would come here to relax and blow off some steam and attend trainings and workshops. The facility included dorms, tents, an auditorium for concerts, sports facilities, and conference rooms. Originally built for positive reasons, this place does have a bit of a dark side. One weekend, a group of teachers was staying at one of the cabins and they felt a dark energy come upon them. The sky got dark, it got colder, there was a chill in the air, and it just felt off. After a few minutes of this, they ended up seeing a dark, shadowy figure appear in their cabin. They were terrified. It's rumored that one of the teachers died that night, but no one can prove it. Ever since then, the place has reported so much paranormal activity, including ghostly figures and apparitions, and screams in the night. These have even been caught on camera. Today, you can go visit the place for yourself. Would you go?
This is no ordinary picture. Want to take a guess what's going on here? You can even take a pause and look at this picture really closely. Hi, I'm Stephanie, and if you like folklore, paranormal, or unsolved cases, or anything strange, you come to the right place. So to give some context, this user here on Reddit said that his friend's mom took a picture of her daughter wearing some shoes when they noticed something really creepy in the top corner of the picture. So if you look here in the corner, you can see that there is a person there in the corner, but there was no one in the house when this picture was taken other than herself and her daughter. Now here's a picture of Brighton. Someone pointed out that you can even see the legs in this figure. Some people said it was a cat, but I think that's insult to intelligence because that does not look like a cat. So what do you think? Was this a man? Was this a hoax? Is it a ghost? Let me know in the comment section.
Okay, so I'm about to blow your mind with this video. We all know how many people believe Antarctica is not a continent of ice, but rather a giant ice wall surrounding all the continents of the world, and many people believe that if we cross these ice walls, there would be many other continents that have been kept hidden from us. Well, I'm about to show you a couple maps that actually show all the continents being surrounded by an ice wall. Up first is a map from Gleason's new Standard of the World map. And as you can see, it clearly shows an ice wall surrounding all the continents. This was also published in 1892, and Antarctica was found in 1820. Which means they definitely had a better understanding of Antarctica, because they literally found it 70 years before this map was published. So the real question is, why is it different today? But that's not even the craziest map. Here is the next map, which was leaked from an unknown source, and it's unbelievable. The ice wall is surrounding the continents and extends out to what looks like a bunch of other continents. And oceans, which means other creatures or humanoids are there that are being hidden from us. Let's say this is real. Why is it being hidden from us? Is it for our safety, or is it being hidden for some other sinister reason? I'm very curious to see what everyone thinks about this, so let me know.
So I have a succubus story time. And in case you don't know what a succubus is a female D word that will SA their victim while they sleep. So the story took place back in 2012 in Bakersfield, California. So Ethan had just gotten home from college when he decided to start working on some homework and get ready for bed. He was pretty drained, so the minute he laid down, he was completely passed out. But not for long. He started to have this dream about this very dark being trying to break into his home. It finally broke in, and the minute this thing broke into his home, Ethan jumped out of bed, completely startled. He felt this intense ringing in his ear that he could not explain where it was coming from, and the whole room just felt off. He almost felt like he had been drugged. He then realized that he couldn't move, he was completely paralyzed, and he felt the presence of a very dark being at the head of his bed. This thing was holding his arms down, not letting him move, and was trying to put something in his ear. Can't give any more further details regarding what was going on because TikTok would not like that, but Ethan was in intense pain and kept trying to break free, but no matter what he did, he couldn't break free. He then started to curse at this thing, but regardless, the pain just intensified. He then heard this horrific, loud, high-pitched laughing sound coming from this D word. The D word then whispered right next to his ear the word soon. The minute he said that, Ethan was completely free and this thing left his house. Ethan right away jumped out of his bed and turned the lights on, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary in his room aside from the fact that both of his dogs had been right outside of his bedroom door, barking and trying to break into his room to save him. He tried to brush it off as it may have just been a horrible nightmare until he went to the bathroom, turned the lights on, and saw in the mirror that both of his eyes were completely bloodshot. Till this day, Ethan remains terrified of this thing returning, being that it said soon. It has yet to return.
What is heard on that voicemail is one of the scariest things I have ever heard. So then they start checking surveillance footage. Turns out they found CCTV footage of him actually dropping him off at that gas station and Henry walking down the street to get to his house, right? 20-30 minutes later, his wife calls him again and they call another friend on three-way. Well, what they didn't know, his phone, he didn't answer the phone. What is heard on that voicemail is one of the scariest things I have ever heard. Okay, so I'm just gonna play it for you. So while this investigation is going on, an anonymous letter is sent to an adjacent police department that says, Henry McCabe, his body next to water, partially buried, needs search dog to find. Witness who saw burial scared. Not too long after that, they ended up finding remains of Henry McCabe next to a lake. An autopsy was performed and it turned out that he had likely drowned in fresh water. Then that makes the letter seem like whoever wrote this letter knew what they were talking about. No foul play was determined and everything was cool.
Then who buried the body?
Normal-looking photos that have a disturbing backstory. The girl in this photo was arrested for torturing and killing animals. She filmed herself doing it and even posted it online. She hanged her dogs by their collars, nailed them to walls, and even shot them with an airsoft gun. She would then cut them open and rip out their internal organs. This sweet-looking little girl is Jeannie, also known as the Wild Child, who spent the first 13 years of her life chained to a chair, and this photo was taken moments after she'd just been rescued. This normal-looking scenic painting features the ocean with the night sky. However, it was painted by Adolf Hitler, whose dream in life was to become an artist. However, he failed the entrance exam to art school and ultimately gave up. This photo of Richard Hickok and Perry Smith shows two murders after hearing that they've been sentenced to death. They murdered a family of 4 and planned to rob them, but they found nothing worth stealing except for a mere $50. The girl on the left is wearing a wire. The girl on the right has no idea. Together they stabbed one of their friends to death, and the girl on the left confessed to the police and is now cooperating with them. Besides the pixelation, this looks like a couple getting married surrounded by their loved ones. However, all the children in this photo were horribly physically and mentally abused until a couple of them managed to escape.
Okay, so we know that the fairy tales Disney movies are based on are way darker than the movies. Like how in The Little Mermaid, Ariel has to stab the prince with a knife that her sisters bought her. But I bet you haven't heard of the Brothers Grimm story that was way too dark for Disney. It's actually not so much a fairy tale as it is just a straight up horror movie. And a reminder that if you have a dark curiosity, you'll love the podcast. So it's called The Juniper Tree and it's from about 1812. And it starts that once there was a woman who was so desperate to have a baby, once she finally had one, she died of happiness. The boy's father eventually remarries, but he remarries a woman who already has a daughter. And the woman is afraid that the boy is going to take the attention away from her daughter. So one day the woman asks the boy to fetch an apple from a chest, and as he's doing so, she slams the lid down on his head, completely beheading him. And after this happens, she's freaking out. She doesn't want the dad to know what she did. So she ties a ribbon around the boy's neck and props him up. Then she proceeds to tell her daughter to go wake the boy up by pushing him. And the daughter does, but his head falls off when she does it, so now the daughter thinks it's her fault this is happening. And the mom tells the daughter, well, the only thing we can do is turn the boy into a stew. So they turn him into a stew and they serve him to the father that night. The daughter feels so bad that she goes into the back and she buries the bones under a juniper tree. And from where she buried the bones sprouts a bird who flies over and drops a millstone on the stepmother's head, crushing her to death. And then that's just the end of the story. That's how dark it is.